Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Public Works for today, Monday, July 22nd, 2019.
Commissioner Garcia, Cabello, James, Davis, and Caloza are present. President James, we do have a quorum. May we start with Bureau introductions, please, starting with Bureau of Engineering.
Good morning, Uri Jimenez, Bureau of Engineering.
Good morning, Brett McReynolds, Bureau of Contract Administration.
Good morning, Asad Al-Najjar, Bureau of Street Lighting.
Good morning, Farhana Muhammad, LA Sanitation.
Good morning, Pamela Ostrander, Bureau of Street Services.
Good morning, Ted Jordan, Public Works General Counsel.
Fernando Campos, Executive Officer. President James, we have no speaker cards under general public comment. We also do not have any commentary under the Neighborhood Council comment section. No speaker cards received for any of the items as well for today's agenda.
Okay, well, we'll close general public comment as well as the Neighborhood Council category of commentary. On agenda item number 1, Council District 8, Task Order Solicitation number 52, an Active Transportation Program Cycle 3, Jefferson Boulevard Complete Streets from Vermont Avenue to Western Avenue project, recommending that the board authorize the city engineer to issue the task to David Evans and Associates Incorporated from the street program's pre-qualified on-call consultants list to provide design and engineering support services for the Active Transportation Program, that's an ATP project, Cycle 3, Jefferson Boulevard Complete Streets from Vermont Avenue to Western Avenue in Task Order Solicitation number 52 with a budget authority of $660,000, which does include contingency. Mr. Chen.
Good morning, Steve Chen, Bureau of Engineering. To give you a little background on this project, this is from Jefferson to Vermont, from Vermont to Western. It's approximately about a mile in length. The scope of work includes to widen sidewalks, provide curb extensions, curb ramps, bicycle facilities, landscape median islands, pedestrian lighting, street trees, and landscaping. And so this project was conceived by the community and Council District 8, so there's very strong support from them, and they had actually approached us to apply for this ATP grant, and so we were successful in getting the funds for that, and we're now requesting approval to issue this task order to David Evans. The estimated time to complete design will be by March of 2020, and construction, the total construction value is about $5 million. And when we solicited the proposals, we only received one response by David Evans out of the 10 that we solicited to. And however, we felt that they were very capable of doing the work and well qualified. Their participation numbers are very good. We had worked with them to maximize their participation. So right now they're pledging 14% of MEB and 5.7% of WEB. And so that concludes my report. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chen. Any questions? I don't see any questions. Commissioner Davis has decided.
Yes, you were explaining to us the business inclusion. You said you're working with them. Are there additional opportunities other than those presented?
Yes, we worked with them through the process of negotiating with them, and they were able to actually increase their participation to these figures right here.
Oh, you helped them to achieve what
Correct.
we have, what we look at now, what we
Yes.
see now. And we don't have outreach with the council offices as it relates to that, do we? We just kind of do it ourselves.
In terms of
inclusion, business inclusion, and
well, I believe it's part of the whole BIP process, isn't that? That's part of the outreach to the whole community. I believe so. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Anything further? I'll make a motion that we adopt agenda item number 1, along with Commissioner Garcia's second and Commissioner Davis. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 1. Any issue sending number 1 forthwith? We'll send number 1 forthwith. Thank you, sir. Agenda item number 4, Council District 13, Revocable Permit, 3400 Sunset LLC at 3400 Sunset Boulevard. Recommending that the board authorize the city engineer to issue a revocable permit, that's an R permit, to encroach within the public way, the public right-of-way, subject to the conditions listed. The encroachments include outside dining area not to exceed 735 square feet with a 42-inch high fixed railing. 3 metal pedestrian and security gates, an educational garden with irrigation system, landscaping, 5-foot wide concrete stairs with a 42-inch high steel guardrail, post and cable rail, variable height retaining walls, a 36-inch high wood fence, and concrete walkways connecting the building emergency exits to the existing public walk encroaching approximately 25 feet within 37-foot wide public right-of-way, adjoining the applicant's property along Mitchell-Torina Street. Ramsey Sawaya, and we have a couple of speakers, but we'll start with you, sir.
Good morning, Ramsey Sawaya with Bureau of Engineering. I'm here to request the board authorization to issue a revocable permit to encroach on the public right-of-way for the project located at 3400 Sunset Boulevard. The project is a mixed-use building consisting of 31 units condominium and 1470 square feet of commercial. The applicant has requested to encroach on the public right-of-way, specifically on Mitchell-Torina Street, with the items that you just have mentioned. Mitchell-Torina is a public right-of-way. It's 37 to 60 feet wide, but it is only improved with a concrete walkway and steps connecting Sunset Boulevard to Larissa Drive. The proposed encroachment will be adjacent to the building and will not impact the walkway in any way or the pedestrians' traffic at all. The applicant also has applied for a vacation proceeding to vacate that area in question. The vacation is a long process. It takes more than 2 years. So this revocable permit is like an early start for them to get their construction wrapped up and to get their CFO. We have notified Council District 13, and they supported the project. There is no controversies. We are not aware of any objection or controversies with this, and we are asking the board to authorize us to issue that revocable permit.
All right, thank you. Any questions from Mr. Sawaya before we go to our speakers? Thank you, sir. We'll start with Christopher Murray.
Good morning, President James and Commissioners of the Public Works Board. I'm Christopher Murray. I'm with Rosenheim and Associates, and we're representing here the applicant, 3400 Sunset LLC, who also own the adjacent property, interestingly enough, located at 3400 Sunset Boulevard. I am accompanied today by Mr. Justin Barth. He's the President CEO of 3400 Sunset LLC, as well as Mr. Oscar Gonzalez. He's a civil engineer with Key PFF, in case there's any technical questions associated with our request. First, thank you for considering our revocable permit application. I also want to thank the staff of the Bureau of Engineering, especially the Central District Office and Mr. Saea, for processing and recommending support of our revocable permit application. Just real quick, and again, I know this has already been covered, so apologize for repetition, but I have a process. So the revocable permit is being sought as part of the directly adjacent mixed-use development located at 3400 Sunset Boulevard, which consists of 31 dwelling units. It's also got about 1,500 square feet of commercial floor area on the ground floor. It's which is located, that ground floor commercial space is located at the intersection or near the intersection of Mitchell-Torina Street and Sunset Boulevard. The proposed mixed-use development, which is actually under construction, was approved by the city in 2008, pursuant to city planning case numbers ZA 2008, 2641-ZV-ZAA, as well as vesting tentative tract map number 70517. Again, project's under construction, commenced about a year and a half, a little bit more than a year and a half ago, and is on schedule for completion roughly end of November, early December of this year. So the purposes of our revocable permit, again, it was covered briefly, but I just want to make sure that we emphasize this. It's to provide a safe and code-required path of travel from our new development to Mitchell-Torina Street, which is a public right-of-way. It's also to provide an educational garden and comprehensive landscaping. We're going to be utilizing Southern California drought-tolerant species, and this is for the enjoyment of the surrounding community. It's also to provide an outdoor patio and related amenities at the intersection of Mitchell-Torina Street and Sunset Boulevard, and it's also to allow for the care and maintenance of Mitchell-Torina Street, specifically adjacent to the 3400 Sunset Boulevard property. So the existing Mitchell-Torina stairs, as well as the walkway will remain, and access will also remain on Mitchell-Torina Street between Sunset Boulevard and Larissa Drive, although there will be some improvements and we will also be maintaining that area. Once completed, this portion of the street will be attractive and well kept. Further, the proposed improvements will activate the area by enhancing pedestrian access as well as enjoyment. And we believe it's going to be an asset for the community for a number of years, many years. So we've read the board report, including the proposed conditions of approval as well as the associated transmittals. Generally, the conditions are acceptable to us. One exception is condition number 10, which recommends at this point that we obtain an approval letter from the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council related to the proposed educational garden and landscape improvements. I want to just point out that the proposed improvements were specifically requested in 2008 by the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council. So we're trying to implement what was actually required of us. And more importantly, the applicant in 2008 agreed to these proposed improvements, and ultimately they were required as conditions of approval in the city planning cases as volunteered by the applicant, again, in both planning cases. So these are conditions that we're trying to implement as a result of those city planning cases. We would prefer and kindly request that condition number 10 either be removed or revised to require an approval letter or similar communication from Council District 13 as opposed to an approval letter from the Neighborhood Council. We have no other concerns or comments related to the proposed conditions of approval or the board report. And with that, I will conclude my formal presentation by saying thank you again for your time, your attention, and respectfully request that you approve our application, authorize the city engineer to issue the requested revocable permit for our project. And with that, I'm available for any questions.
Well, thank you, sir. We'll start with Commissioner Cabello.
Actually, I'd like to hear from CD13 from Amy, if that's okay. First.
Commissioner Davis, do you have a question for
I
Mr.?
just have some routine timeline questions about the project.
Okay. I have a question for you, sir. I had actually circled number 10 myself, but I had a different question. I think you answered it, but now that I think you already answered it, I'll go a little bit farther. My question was going to be, have you already presented the project to the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council? Never mind getting any kind of approval letters, but at least just presented it to them. And it sounds like you have already. On how many different occasions would be my question now?
That's a great question, and many occasions, although again, this goes back to the original approval back in 2008. So we had a number of meetings with their Urban Design and Preservation Committee, that's their functional land use committee, if you will.
Right.
We had several meetings with them, and again, the project evolved over time based on feedback and frankly, the cooperation of the applicant at that moment. And so it evolved, and we did some negotiations, both with the neighborhood council as well as our neighbors through that process. So to answer your question, yes, and we had multiple meetings, and then it ultimately culminated in a recommendation or a motion from the Urban Design and Preservation Committee to the full board, which approved, and it got kind of those conditions and that motion were integrated into the conditions of approval of our planning department case letter or letters of determination.
Okay.
I was going to do a timeline. That's what I was going to say.
Okay. Well, yeah, let's hear from CD13, and we'll go through that.
Sure.
All right. Thank you, sir. We'll hear from CD13. We may have some more questions after that. Amy Oblicant?
Yes.
Hi.
Good morning, commissioners and staff. Amy Oblicant, Planning Deputy for Councilmember O'Farrell at the 13th District. We recommend the modification of condition number 10 be done in the report. We would like the condition to read as follows. The council office, in coordination and consultation with the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council, shall provide an approval letter upon completion of the landscaping and educational garden, period. Thank you for your consideration. Did you have any questions for me?
Yes, we'll start with Commissioner Cabello.
Thank you, President James. It's probably more comments than questions, Amy, but glad to see you are here in support of this project. I know I checked in with your office last week, and I wanted to make sure that, if the council office is okay, generally I'm going to be okay with it, but without your approval and your support, I would probably have some issues. So I think I will, first of all, comment on, I pass this project every day. on my way home from spin, but nobody needs to know that. And it's a great project, I think, in that it will definitely activate an unactivated historic stairway. There are a lot of those in the Echo Park Silver Lake area, and this will really connect Larissa to Sunset and bring a lot of, I think, not only pedestrian enjoyment and engagement for the school across the street, but a lot of public safety as well. So I think it's a fantastic project, and I support it. And I will also make a motion to amend condition number 10 as stated by Ms. Ablicat.
And I can provide you, if you want the written
Yeah, you can give that to
modification.
Dr.
Okay.
Campos. That would be wonderful.
I know sometimes when you read it, I try to include everything, but
Appreciate
it might be
Amy.
helpful. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cabello. Commissioner Davis.
I just wanted to ask the developer or the representative about just the routine timeline of the project.
Okay, before we do that, sorry, Commissioner Davis, I keep putting you off. Before we do that, Ms. Abigail, let me ask you one more. You read that kind of fast for me. Let me see if I can summarize for you, or for me. So what we're going to do regarding the letter is the letter is going to be received or obtained from the council office, but the council office will consult with the neighborhood council.
Exactly.
Okay, great. That's satisfactory to me. Thank
Yes.
you. So let's bring up, any other questions for our Council District 13 representative? All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Murray, if you could come back, we have a couple questions for you from Commissioner Davis.
I just have a routine question about the timeline of the project. You've described it as a mixed-use project, and then you're doing some of these environmental enhancing things around the project that will be of benefit to the community. What is the timeline of the mixed use and the subsequent upgrade and improvement and landscaping, et cetera, that we're doing? What's the timeline of what we anticipate the timeline to be?
I'm sorry. Christopher Murray, Rosenheim and Associates, here on behalf of 3400 Sunset, the applicant. Great question. So we're aiming to be ready for occupancy end of November, early December of this year, hopefully earlier.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's the project, and Commissioner Cabello can probably attest to this if she's driving by every day. It's well underway, if not darn near close to wrapping up. We were, again, and I greatly appreciate the BOE staff. We were able to bifurcate our B permit to do the improvements along Sunset Boulevard while we were waiting to process or have this revocable permit process. So as soon as we can get approval, please, and start the work, it's going to go very quickly, but again, the aim is to open up end of November, early December of this year.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Commissioner Cabello?
Thank you, President James. Mr. Murray, I'm sorry, I don't know if I didn't read this or missed this altogether or wasn't stated. Are these rental units? Are these condos? What kind of units are these?
The intent will be for ownership for condominium purposes.
Okay, thank you.
I would just note for the record as well that there are, for anybody listening online, including if neighborhood council members are or will later, there are renderings and diagrams submitted as transmittals 3 and 4. So anything further? Okay, we have Commissioner Cabello's motion as amended.
Thank you.
Seconded by Commissioner Davis. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 4. Any issue sending number 4 forthwith? We'll send number 4 forthwith. All the people that live on Michael Torina Street are going to be upset they didn't get a project. Well, Mitchell Torina gets a project. Michael Torina doesn't. So there we go. Sorry for the confusion. So thank you all. And thank you, Ms. Albican, as well. Agenda item number 2. Eventually. A relocation. Actually, let's not do number. Yeah, let's go ahead and do number. We don't have any cards on number 2, do we, Dr. Campos? I'm sorry. Any cards on number 2?
No, we do not.
Okay. Agenda item number 2, Council District 14, relocation claim and license agreement. 1025. It's long enough. Cesar Chavez, Lorena Street, Indiana Street Intersection Improvements Project, La Gloria Food Corporation Incorporated, recommending that the board first authorize the city engineer or his designee to approve the agreement between the city and La Gloria Food Corporation dated May 10th, 2019. Again, to repeat, This is to approve an agreement between the city and La Gloria Food Corporation dated in May, entered into upon mediation concerning the relocation of La Gloria from 3285, 3287, 3291, and 3293 East Cesar Avenue, Los Angeles. That's the Cesar Chavez property. To 3455 East First Street, Los Angeles. That's the replacement property. So I will take Commissioner Cabello's amendment on the notice. It is Cesar Chavez Avenue. Secondly, authorize the city engineer or his designee to enter into a license agreement with La Gloria pursuant to the agreement. Mr. Jimenez, I would note that our city attorney is in the room as well.
Good morning. Udi Jimenez, Chief Real Estate Officer, Bureau of Engineering. So I'm here before you to ask the board to approve an agreement that was entered into between the City Bureau of Engineering and the property owner, Cesar Chavez, who is being displaced as a result of the Cesar Chavez roundabout project that's actually taking place, that is programmed to take place right at the border of the City of Los Angeles and the County of Los Angeles in East Los Angeles in CD 14. So this is an intersection that has notoriously had problems with traffic in the past. It's because 5 different streets run into the same location, and the city proposes to put a roundabout there. And as a result of that, 2 businesses are going to be displaced. The city has acquired the real estate for the 2 properties that are necessary for this project, and 2 businesses are going to be relocated. One of them is La Gloria, and the other one's La Jolla. Back in 2017, a claim was made by the owner for the relocation costs, and the city, the Bureau of Engineering went through the bid, the proposal, and approved certain things. And the owner filed, and the board at that time approved a total amount of $3 million for the relocation based on the city's analysis of what it would cost to relocate the business. As a result of the city's approval of a certain amount, the owner filed an appeal that is before the board, and at the same or about the same time filed a lawsuit to avoid being displaced at the time. And as a result of that lawsuit, we recently, with the city attorney's office taking the lead, entered into a mediation with the property owner. And the result of that mediation is an agreement between the city and La Gloria that it will allow a framework to be in place to move forward with a successful relocation of the business. And what we're asking the board to do is to approve that agreement that was mediated by a retired judge. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. Just a couple of comments for the record, really. First of all, I know that this has had a number of occurrences, a number of meetings, a number of events and milestones that have happened over the years regarding this to get to this point. Thank you to your team, to the city attorney's office, as well as the representatives of La Gloria for their hard work on this. You mentioned that this is a mediation agreement that was mediated in front of a retired judge. I would just mention for the record that it's a JAMS mediator. JAMS is very well known. It stands for Judicial Arbitration Mediation Services. But JAMS is very well known and very well respected in the legal community for neutrals, as they're called, to work to resolve disputes, as has happened here. I would also note that we are staying currently within the $3 million range that the board had approved in 2017, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Then with that, I'll make a motion that we adopt agenda item number 2 to confirm this agreement, seconded by Commissioner Caloza. Any objection? Without objection, we'll we will approve agenda item number 2. Any issue sending it forthwith? We'll send it forthwith. And Mr. Jimenez, just to put one other thing on the record, if you may have said it, but if you did, I missed it. One of the things that the city did in this process was engage our own consultant to work in response to the claim that was presented by LaGloria as well, and that's what resulted in some additional time that was taken, correct?
Correct. As a result of the appeal process, the board hired an independent consultant to prepare a report for the board, and that took some time getting access. That's one of the things that was resolved through this agreement. The city was having some trouble getting access. Since the agreement has taken place, the city has made multiple inspections of the property in order to get a better understanding of what it would cost to move. And so a lot of things are moving forward that were not moving forward earlier.
Great. So thank you for adding that along with me to our record. So we have a more complete record this morning.
Thank you.
That'll be the agenda item number 2. So it was passed unanimously and will go forthwith. Agenda item, thank you all. Agenda item number 3 from Sanitation Council District number 9, Commercial Corridor Litter Abatement Project, California Environmental Quality Act compliance, recommending that the board first review and consider the notice of exemption herein included for the proposed commercial corridor litter abatement project. Secondly, find on the basis of the whole record that the project is exempt from CEQA and that the notice of exemption reflects the City of Los Angeles' independent judgment and analysis, and then adopt the notice of exemption. Ishlan Tak. Hello, sir.
Hello, good morning. Yes, my name is Ishlan Tak with LA Sanitation. I'm here for item number 3, as you mentioned, and right now the project we have about 6,000 litter bins that we service in LA Sanitation, and per the council motion, we are to purchase 20 additional litter bins, specifically big bellies, and they are solar compactors, and it will be at City 9, and in addition to that, we are to file a notice of exemption for the CEQA clearance. As far as funding is concerned, there's no impact to the general fund. The funding is coming from the CRA excess bond proceeds, and the amount of $226,075, and the funds are currently deposited at the Office of the Controller. And for as far as the CEQA clearance is concerned, we are recommending notice of exemption. Since the trash receptacles that will be placed in the sidewalk will have negligible or minimal effect or change, and this will essentially be under categorical exemption, and it's from the exemption in accordance to CEQA, Section 15061B3 and also 15301. And that's from the state CEQA guidelines. And as far as the city guidelines, Class 1-3 and Class 1-5. And as far as our recommendation is for you to adopt the NOE and to direct LA-San to do a filing at LA County and city clerk's offices. And this will apply the 35-day statute of limitation for any decision challenges. And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Any questions at all regarding this at all?
Yeah, I do.
Commissioner Davis, thank you.
So this will be a series of big bellies that we'll be implementing along the Broadway-Manchester corridor and the Exposition USC area. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
It's total 28,
And I would suspect with us not having to go through CEQA, we'll be able to expedite this and complete it in a timely manner, I guess. How long do you think this will take for us to be able to implement this project?
well, we have 5 years up to September 2024, but we currently have a contract managed by Sports Services, and purchase can be placed through there. And it will take, as far as the purchase order is concerned, and the delivery, it's about 10 weeks. 8 weeks to deliver, to assemble, and 2 weeks to deliver the item.
So we intend to perhaps implement this project before the end of the year?
As far as time frame, I'm not so certain. CD9 may have additional information on that.
I see.
but we will proceed with the purchase, and they will direct where we want the big bellies.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Anything further? Commissioner Caloza.
Thank you, President James. I just had a quick question. Have we received or requested these exemptions from other litter abatement projects before, or is this the first one?
I inquired with the Big Belly representative, and they said no. This would be the first time that a CEQA clearance would be put in place.
So we have current litter abatement projects that sanitation has that actually follow CEQA guidelines.
Well, we currently have 6,000 in the throughout the city, and a little bit over 100 Big Bellies are already in place in City 1, 14 and 15, I believe. And so under those circumstances, we have not filed any CEQA clearance.
Could you just explain why this one would require an exemptions and then the other ones didn't?
Well, we are, with this funding, we're being directed by the CAO to put the CEQA clearance. I believe it's in reference to the funding source, the redevelopment area funding. But this would shorten the statute of limitations once we file it. If we don't file it, there's a 180-day statute of limitation. So it will shorten the period of time for any challenges.
Okay.
If I understood, I'm sorry, if I understood the discussion, a couple of interruptions and helicopters and stuff. It starts a clock, right?
Pardon?
Once you file the notice of exemption, you start a clock.
Yes,
It starts a clock that provides a window of appeal, but at the end of that period of time, the ability to appeal expires.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
I don't know. Is that helpful at all, Commissioner Caloza?
No, I maybe just asked you offline to explain it to me, but
The exemption, we are not, in this case, we're not really required to file. Without filing, we have 180 days. But with filing it, it will shorten that period to 35 days.
okay.
Mr. Jordan, you can go on the record, or you can speak
No, I'm
with
fine. I
Commissioner
think what
Caloza.
the staff is saying is that they view projects of this type as exempt for the reasons stated. The preparing the notice of exemption and recording it, it's recorded with the county, does have the benefit of shortening the statute of limitation for anyone that wants to either appeal the action or file a lawsuit to challenge the city. But whether or not you prepare the notice of exemption, if the project is exempt, it is exempt. The documentation that they're preparing here does create a better record for the city in the event of a challenge. If someone were to challenge a prior action, and if such an action were timely, but those were a while ago, so it's probably wouldn't be timely, the absence of following the formal CEQA process in those prior cases would leave the city with perhaps a weaker record in which to defend itself. But the underlying exemption, if it's exempt, would still apply. It's just we would lack the strong record that we typically have when we go through this formal process. Does that
Yes,
make sense?
well, I would describe it in a little bit of a different way. In addition to what you're saying, it gives the city, in a way, a rock-solid procedural argument.
Yes.
And the reason is that we believe the city believes that it's exempt either way. But by shortening the statute of limitations time, if an appeal were to come in on day 40, then it's over just based on procedure. If we do this. If we don't do this and an appeal comes in on day 40, we have to argue it on the merits, on the substance. That's why you want to shorten the time procedurally.
Yes, and also, and I think it's been adopted now, but as you may know, we prepared an ordinance for the City Council to adopt that would actually formalize the appeal process for just situations like this. So when there is a notice that's been approved by the board and then filed with the county, it lays out all of the time periods and procedural means which you can appeal it. Those procedural processes that we put in place by ordinance don't really kick in unless we take this formal action to adopt the notice and record it. So
Correct.
it's a I know that staff really does endeavor to be more formal now with these things because we have an ordinance now that then follows that formality and sets time limitations.
Thank you. Commissioner Cabello?
Thank you, President James. And I thank staff and for everybody doing their due diligence and being above and beyond reproach in terms of protecting the city and making sure that we're doing everything by all proper measures. And I would like to second Commissioner Davis's motion, as this is a council-driven project, and we want to make sure that we get this done in an expedited fashion. So I will second Commissioner Davis's motion.
Okay. No further questions. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 3. Any issue sending number 3 forthwith? We'll send number 3 forthwith. Thank you, guys. Agenda item number, we don't have any more voting items, correct, Dr. Campos?
That is correct.
Okay, that takes us to our oral report. Sewers 5 and Sewers 6 update. Mr. Tolles, welcome back, sir.
Good morning. My name is Ryan Tolles. I'm with the Wastewater Conveyance Construction Division of the Bureau of Engineering. I'm here today to provide the regularly scheduled quarterly report on the sewers contract. I'll start with the Sewers 5 contract and highlight some of the important aspects of it. So the expiration of the contract was September 30th of 2019. Within the contract, we completed 938 construction orders, 592 of which went to Matthew and Stewart Company and the dollar amount of $15 million or $15.9 million roughly. M&R Construction received 17 of the construction orders in the amount of $381,000, and Tomovich and Associates received 329 of the construction orders in an amount of approximately $9.2 million.
I'm sorry, real quick, Ryan. Is
Sure.
that the one that M&R pulled out of?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
That's the one. So if we look at the original construction orders issued, dollar amount was $21.5 million roughly, and the fully executed change orders associated with those was roughly $4 million. So the total expended amount under the Sewers 5 contract was $25.5 million. The ceiling of the contract was $26 million, so it's about 98% expended. We're no longer using this contract, so all of the expenses are captured there. We primarily right now are just focused on closing out some of the as-builts for some of the older projects. And that summarizes the Sewers 5 contract. The next contract I'll cover is the Sewers 6. The Sewers 6 contract started in November of 2017, and it expires in November 2nd of 2022. We're about 33% time expended on the contract. So far, we've issued 502 construction orders on the contract, 237 of which went to Matthew and Stewart in an amount of approximately $7.3 million. M&R received 105 construction orders in an amount of $2.4 million, and Tomovich and Associates received 160 construction orders in the amount of $4.2 million. The total contract ceiling is $30 million. We've expended approximately $13.9 million and have a remaining ceiling of $16 million. So we're about 46% expended in terms of budget, and we're about 33% expended in terms of time. We've completed 382 of the 502 construction orders, and below there's a summary of more detailed status of each one of the construction orders. And I'm here to answer any questions you may have on the reports.
Thank you, Ryan. Just a couple of things. So M&R withdrew from Sewers 5, and I remember having some communications with them, I don't know, 4 years ago maybe, about that.
Yeah.
But they submitted a bid for Sewers 6,
right,
and they've been working in Sewers 6, and we're continuing to work with them in Sewers 6, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and they're continuing to accept projects.
They're accepting projects, and if you notice the dollar amounts between the two contracts, there's a significant amount when you compare it to the previous contract that has gone to MNR.
Right.
They've received about 2.4 million as of today, and we're only about 33% through the contract. Last contract, they only 381,000. So they are accepting projects and doing a lot of work for us.
This is just anecdotal. I'm trying to remember, maybe they withdrew from Sewers 5 because of staffing at the time, and maybe they were able to staff back up.
I wasn't around at that time. Yeah, this was back in 2014 when we removed them. I'm not sure what the reason was.
Well, it's good. I'm glad that they're, Mr. Smith might know, but I'm glad they're back on, I'll leave it off the record. I'm glad they're back on track and we're continuing to work with them. So,
yes, we're working well with them.
Thank you. Commissioner Davis.
Yeah, I have a procedural question, Mr. Tolles. When a contractor falls out of one of the sewer programs, what do we do in those terms? Does it close it and we use the existing remainder of contractors, or do we open it up to bring up the one who was number 25 or whatever that fell behind and bring them in? What is the process and the procedure when that occurs?
They just fall off the list, and we just stay with whoever remains on the contract.
Okay,
That's what happened on Sewers 5.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Thank you.
And just a little side note, we are coming for the ESR contract. We don't normally do this, but we are coming to the board to reopen that contract soon to add more people to the list.
Is that because of an increase in work?
It's primarily due to some disputes that occurred earlier during the contract, and it was an agreement that we had to reopen it and allow more bidders who qualify to be added.
Do we have a number certain in terms of the proposed increase?
In terms of the number, well, we're gonna go out with an RFQ and allow whoever is eligible to respond and be added to the list. So it's something that's in the process right now, and it'll come to board, and everybody will be briefed on that. It's not something we do all the time, but it's something that does happen. Kind of ties into your question a little bit. That's why I brought it up.
I'm very glad to see the opportunities increase for prime contractors in that regard.
Thank you. Mr. Jordan.
Yeah, the staff will be able to brief you more thoroughly when that item comes up on the agenda. The Bureau is acting at the direction of the board, actually. At the time we awarded the emergency sewer contracts, the board had indicated that at this point in time, the Bureau should come back
with a review,
with a reopener to add additional firms.
I remember that.
Okay, but they'll be able to brief you more thoroughly once it's on.
But I didn't remember it until you just reminded us. So thank you, sir.
So it's a heads up for the future.
Thank you, Mr. Tolles. No other questions. The oral report will be received.
Thank you.
Dr. Campos, we have cleared the desk, correct?
Yes, you have.
We are adjourned. Everyone have a nice week.